Hey everyone, welcome tonight to Messiah Nation, or whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we're going to talk about, we're going to continue with our series on the parables of Jesus. And tonight we're going to talk about the parable of the sower. And man, I'm really excited about this one tonight. I hope you are too. I hope there's something that you can come away with from this tonight that'll help you in your studies and in living for the Lord and your faith, walking out your faith. I do want to start with something I keep meaning to do, and just give you a little bit of a public service announcement. I just want to throw out there that the Bible tells us, right? There's nothing new under the sun, right? So nothing I'm sharing with you. I'm not trying to come on here and boast about having any special revelation or anything of the sort. I'm simply wanting to share things with you that probably dozens of other folks have already said, but it's just maybe my little twist on it and my take on it that would hopefully help somebody. All right. So I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think a lot of people, want to put other people on a pedestal. And the truth is we all have access to the same stuff. And I'm just bringing you stuff I've gotten from other folks that are way smarter than me and know a lot more than me. So anyhow, so let's get into Matthew 13. We're going to look at the parable of the sower. We're going to read quite a bit of scripture tonight, so just hang with me. But Matthew 13, beginning in verse 1, we're going to see some similar stuff that we saw in Mark 4 last week. But Matthew 13 says that that day, Jesus went out of the house and was sitting by the sea, and large crowds gathered to him, and he got in the boat and sat down, and the whole crowd was standing on the beach. And he spoke many things to them in parables. So here we go again. He's talking in parables, saying, behold, the sower went out to sow. So that is what this parable is about. He's introing it as the sower going out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate them up. Others fell on the rocky places, where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up because they had no depth of soil. But when the sun had risen, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Verse 7. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out, and others fell on the good soil and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. And the disciples came to him and said, why do you speak to them in parables? Okay, so they're confused here. Why are you speaking to them in these stories? Why not just say what you mean to say, right? Say what you mean to say. All right. Verse 11. Jesus answered them, to you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. So there's the same thing again that we read in Mark chapter 4. There are mysteries of the kingdom of heaven that were made known to the disciples. He says, but to them it has not been granted. For whoever has, to him more shall be given, and he will have an abundance, but whoever does not have, even what he has shall be taken away. So sounds kind of like Jesus is being mean, but let's keep reading what he's talking about here. He's talking about the revelation, right? The mysteries. If you have, you will know more. If you don't, then you won't know anything. Even what you know will be taken away, right? So which kind of bears out. We'll talk about that in a second. Verse 13. Therefore, I speak to them in parables, because while seeing, they do not see, and while hearing, they do not hear, nor do they understand. In their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is being fulfilled, which says, you will keep on hearing, but will not understand. You will keep on seeing, but will not perceive. So we're getting a little bit of context now for that statement he keeps making, because he made the same thing in Mark 4, right? And in Luke that we read last week. So for the heart of this people has become dull. With their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they would see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and return, and I would heal them. Verse 16. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Okay, so we read a lot of verses there. There is a lot crammed into these verses, and we're going to try to go through it a little bit here and get. We're going to get to a point that we're going to make about this parable that's going to hopefully open some understanding up for us. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the outline of this passage. Okay, so he tells us, first of all, he's starting out with the sower. There is a sower that goes out to sow his seed, right? And he tells us what's going to happen to that seed. Some of it's going to fall on the roadside. Some of it's going to fall on rocky soil. Some of it's going to fall in a place where it's thorny. And then other of the soil is going to fall on, other of the seed is going to fall on good soil, and it will spring up and it will produce a harvest. So notice already that 3 out of the 4 places that the seed falls is not good soil. Okay. Now, then the disciples ask him, why are you speaking in parables? And he tells them, because you were given the understanding of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but they have not been. And he quotes or references Isaiah, which we're going to look at in just a second. And he talks about, after that, the state of the people. Their hearts are dull. This is the way that they've basically chosen to behave. Okay. It's not that the mysteries weren't given to them because they weren't available, but because they are dull in their mind, in their hearts, and in their spirits. So that is the summation of what we just read. There's a lot packed in there, but we're going to pull out one piece and start to unpack this a little bit. Let's start with this idea of mysteries that is mentioned in the passage. So it talks about mysteries, and we need to define that word, because what it means in this passage, and this will bear out as we study the rest of these verses. It's not something that is special knowledge, right? It's not something that is kind of secretive or anything like that. It's just something that's been revealed, but not everyone noticed it, right? And it actually gives us the definition in the verse that we just read. That last verse there says this in verse 16 and 17. It says, but blessed are you because you see, your eyes, they see, and your ears, they hear. They hear what? They heard the mysteries. They heard the truth coming out of Scripture. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see. Okay, so the desire was there and did not see it, and hear what you hear and did not hear it. Why? Because that time had not come yet. But for us at this time, for the disciples at their time, they were seeing the Messiah come. They were seeing the fruit of what had taken place and the scriptures being revealed concerning the Messiah. But before them, there were many righteous men, like it says, many prophets, many people that had desired to see the day of the Messiah, but it had not come to them, right? Paul picks up on this same idea when he talks about how there were many who did not see that there would be a day that all of the nations were included in the covenant of Messiah Yeshua. Why? Because they didn't understand the revelation of what was being spoken. But now, looking back in hindsight, we can see those pieces coming together. But they didn't get to see that because they did not have the Messiah. Okay, so that's what it's talking about when it's talking about the mysteries in this passage, right? So let's go on. Let's look at the reference in Isaiah that is made. Okay, and I want to make this clear. Okay, something happens when Yeshua speaks. Something happens in the New Testament that we don't experience today the same way. Okay, you have to understand, in their culture, many of these folks have been memorizing the word of God since they were before they were of school age. Okay, they learned to memorize the scriptures. So the way that the rabbis would teach is they would reference a particular passage. Everyone, they knew these passages, so he referenced something in Isaiah, and they knew the source text, right? They knew what was being referenced, and so then they would unpack that understanding from the source text that they referenced. Okay, we see him do this. We see him quote Isaiah. We just read it, but let's read it again here. Chapter 13, verse 13, he says, I speak to them in parables. Verse 14, in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is being fulfilled, which says, you will keep on hearing, but will not understand. You will keep on seeing, but will not perceive. Okay? So where does that prophecy come into play? Well, if you go to Isaiah chapter 6, that is where this prophecy comes from. Now, remember, Isaiah chapter 6 is pretty spectacular. It starts out with Isaiah having a vision of the throne room. All right, he is seeing this fantastic picture of the throne of God. It says in the beginning of the verse, it starts with, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on the throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple, right? And then he starts to describe what he sees. But we're going to skip forward to verse 8 to get the context of what Yeshua quoted here. He says this in verse 8, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? So that is the context of everything that's taking place in Isaiah 6. The Lord is asking for a representative. Then I said, here am I, send me. So Isaiah volunteers, right? And so God says, go and tell this people, keep on listening, but do not perceive. Keep on looking, but do not understand. Render the hearts of the people insensitive, their ears dull, and their eyes dim. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and return and be healed. So we understand now a little bit of the context of what Yeshua is speaking about in Matthew 13. When he's giving this parable, he references Isaiah. Why? Because God is looking for a sower. He's looking for someone that will go sow an unpopular message, or should we say a mystery, an understanding, something that is being revealed at the time of Isaiah. And he understands that it's not going to be received. So he tells Isaiah, who will go for me? Right? In the same context, Yeshua is saying there is a message of the kingdom of heaven, that mystery, that is also going to be shared. It's also going to be sowed into our day. It's the message of me, right? And the kingdom of heaven. And that message is also not going to be received. It's not going to, some of it's going to fall on, like he said, on rocky places, on the road. It's among the thorns, and only some of it is going to fall on good soil. So it's the same message that Isaiah was speaking that now Yeshua is referencing. It is God looking for a sower. So I have a question for you. Will you be a sower in this day? Okay, that's the question that he's asking of Isaiah. That's the question that Yeshua is asking of the people surrounding him as well. Now let's look at the rest of the context here in Isaiah chapter 6, because he goes on to give us some more context. It says this, then I said, Lord, how long? Right? How long are they not going to listen? How long is this going to take place? And he answered, until cities are devastated and without inhabitant. Houses are without people, and the land is utterly desolate. The Lord has removed men far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. Yet there will be a 10th portion in it, and it will again be subject to burning, like a terebinth or an oak, whose stump remains when it is felled. The holy seed is its stump. Okay? So we get even more context here. What does God say? There is going to be a remnant of people who are good soil. He calls it a stump here, but he tells Isaiah some pretty amazing stuff, right? It's the same message that Yeshua is preaching, right? He said there's going to be a little bit that falls on good soil. God tells Isaiah there's going to be a few people, a remnant, a tenth, a stump that will, it's like something that has fallen, but then out of the ashes, out of the stump is going to rise good soil, is going to grow a remnant, right? So we got to ask ourselves, do we really understand what we're reading here? Because he's saying some pretty unbelievable things here. We have to listen to the words that God is speaking to Isaiah. He says there's going to be a remnant, but it's going to get really, really bad. There's going to be, he uses words like devastation, desolation, forsaken places, barren land. It's going to be complete destruction everywhere you look. Okay. Now, it's not talking just about when the temple was destroyed in AD 70. It's not talking about the different things that came to pass just in the as it concerns to the Jewish people. In the same way that Yeshua is referencing the kingdom of heaven, what did Isaiah see? What was the context of this passage? It was the kingdom of heaven. In the first part of chapter 6, verses 1, he says, I saw the Lord sitting on his throne in his temple. So it is about the kingdom of heaven, right? And so he's saying that until the kingdom of heaven comes, there is going to need to be people who will sow this message. It's going to be an unpopular message. And Isaiah says, how long, Lord? And he says, listen, everything's going to get destroyed before the kingdom of heaven comes. So he asks Isaiah the question, and I'm asking you the question, will you still be a sower? Even though no one's going to listen to you, right? Even though, not no one, okay? Even though there's only going to be a remnant, there's going to be a stump that listens, right? But will you still be a sower? There's going to be people who just completely dismiss the message. There's going to be all kinds of different people. But with what the Lord is revealing to you, with the message of mysteries that he has spoken to you that are now being revealed to us through the word of God, through the Spirit of God, through the Messiah, Yeshua, that has come and done what he has done for us, will we be sowers of this message? Now, did you know this? Even Paul talks about this same type of parable, this same type of message in Romans chapter 11. Let's check it out. Romans chapter 11, verse 5, it says, in the same way then, there has also come to be at the present time a remnant according to God's gracious choice. So that he's talking about the same thing, that seed that fell on good soil, right? The same thing that Isaiah talks about, that stump that is going to grow into something great, that tenth that was left. Verse 6, at the present time, there's a remnant according to God's gracious choice. Verse 6, but if it is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. What then? And this is the context of what's being said. What Israel is seeking, it has not obtained, but those who were chosen obtained it, and the rest were hardened. All right. So he's talking about the same thing. There was some seed that fell on good soil, but most of the seed was hardened. It fell on hardened hearts. Let's look at the rest of this context. Verse 8, just as it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes to see not, and ears to hear not, down to the very day. So he's quoting something there, and he's not quoting Isaiah. We're going to look at that in a second. And then David says, verse 9, he's quoting something else. Let their table become a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a retribution to them. Verse 10, let their eyes be darkened to see not and bend their backs forever. Okay, so that's a reference to Psalm 69:23. So now, man, check this out now. So now we have Yeshua, we have Isaiah, and we have Paul and even David speaking the same message, right? What message are they speaking? They're still asking, will someone be a sower, even though most people are not going to listen? Their hearts are going to be hardened, right? They're going to hear the parables and they're not going to have an understanding. They're going to hear the truth and they're still not going to have understanding. They're going to hear the mysteries, the revelation, and they're still not going to have understanding. Why? Not because they can't, but because their hearts have gone dull. They don't want to know, right? So let's look at where all of this. So we have David quoting something, right? Because David was before Isaiah. So Isaiah was quoting something that he heard from the Lord. Now Yeshua quoted the same type of passage that he heard from Isaiah. Then Paul quoted something, but Paul's was a little different. Where did Paul's come from? Well, guess who else preached this message? Moses. In Deuteronomy 29, verse 2, listen to what happens. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, you have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and all his servants and all his land, the great trials which your eyes have seen, those great signs and wonders. Yet to this day, the Lord has not given you a heart to know, nor eyes to see, nor ears to hear. He's dealing with the same thing. He's preaching the message. He's preaching the mysteries, the secret things that had been revealed, but they're not listening. Did some of them listen? Sure. There were some that did, correct? Well, let's look at the rest of this. At the end of chapter 29, verse 29, it says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our sons forever. Why? That we may observe all the words of this law. So listen, I know the Lord's revealing a lot of things to a lot of you guys, but the question is this: will you be the spokesperson? Will you be the sower? Even though a lot of people aren't going to want to hear what you have to say. A lot of people are going to think what you say is crazy. What the Lord is revealing to you is crazy. But listen to what it just said. You know, you hear some people that they say, well, if I see it with my own eyes, if the Lord spoke to me, if I saw a sign or a wonder. Listen to what we just read in Deuteronomy 29. You saw it with your own eyes. You heard it with your own ears. They heard the presence of the Lord in the tabernacle, and yet they still would not believe. Why? Because their hearts did not want to believe. They made a choice not to be good soil. But the question today is, will you be a sower? Will you be the one that the Lord can use to speak the truth in a place where a lot of people don't want to hear it, right? So that is the first part. We're going to actually do a part 2 on this parable, because this time we were only focusing on the sower. Today, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that's me and you. We are the sowers now, and a lot of people don't want to hear our message. Yeshua told us, we were warned, right, that we're going to be despised and rejected just like him. Why? Because no one wants to hear this message. Now, if you want to preach a message of, oh, it's all love, more and more love, then sure, people are going to listen. But if you preach the truth of the kingdom of heaven and what that means, lots of people are going to have a problem with that, right? So listen, let's just continue to preach the word. Let's talk about the word. Let's do what the word says. And we're going to be all right. Okay. So hope this helped. Hope this made some sense to you and connected maybe some dots for you. There's even some cool stuff you can go look at, other people that spoke this message in this parable. Maybe we'll get into that one day, but I'll leave you with that. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and shalom. God bless you.